approached so many topics around climate, talking about COP30 that will happen in Brazil, in Belém, in the end of this year. I think it's very important because it's a COP where we are going to evaluate the 10 years of the Paris Agreement. So it will be a COP that will be defining the next 10 years. It's going to happen in the middle of the Amazon, bringing the conversation about nature-based solutions to the center of the stage. So here, Maria Neto, we have Maria Neto, that is the Director Executive at Institute for Climate and Society, one of the leading civil society organizations in Brazil that is very engaged with COP. Tony Land, that is an American that has been working to catalyze investments to nature-based solutions in Brazil. And Jorge, that is the co-founder of the Brazil Climate Institute, an organization that is focused on positioning Brazil as a global solutions hub and fostering partnerships between Brazil and other countries. So the idea here is that each of them will talk 5 minutes about the perspectives of the private sector and the civil society about what to expect in COP30 and how we all can engage in making a successful COP. So Maria, let's start with you.
Okay, hello everybody. It's not easy to be the last panel between us and the drinks that I see some of you already took, which is good. And so I will try to be very brief. From our point of view, I'm a philanthropy working in Brazil, and we are working on climate change in very different ways. Obviously, we are collaborating with the government and with the society to make this COP be a success. We are not an easy moment. We know that this week we had a very sad, let's say, dropping from United States from the Paris Agreement, and that obviously doesn't help us with the year ahead. At the same time, I think we cannot just, because of that, stop going and continuing. And so it brings to Brazil a big challenge to, at the one hand, have a tough work on diplomacy for us to ensure that the countries that are in will come with ambition and that we can demonstrate that these next 10 years really be meaningful years. At the same time, for Brazil, this is also an opportunity for us to demonstrate by leading that we can actually be moving also as a leading country for removing greenhouse gases, reducing greenhouse gases with our renewables, and also promote innovative ways to address climate change. So from our point of view, there are different ways to look at that. How can we collaborate with international arenas? We need to work at different levels of messages and narratives. The narratives need to get to the people. There is some reason why maybe some people don't understand the sense of urgency. At the same time, if I take just the case of Brazil, we had last year major economic losses because of dryness seasons caused by climate change, because of inundation caused by climate change, because of fires, and that affects our economy because we have an economy completely dependent on ecosystems with agriculture and renewables being very important for us. So that's an area that I think we need to look at in terms of narrative. How private sector understands this as an opportunity, but also a priority because it can affect our economy. How do we talk to the people on everyday lives? And so part of this next year is building this narrative. The second part of it is building action. We think it's extremely important that we can come by COP30 demonstrating actual things. I'm very happy to see here in Davos many of our private sector and a lot of the innovation and the things that are being done have been talking about actually sustainability and climate change as a core work. Our mining company, our companies on steel that are here, and a lot of the other companies that are here, banks and so on, were all demonstrating the Brazil House different perspectives of electric cars, of opportunities for renewables, but also about the nature-based solutions that I think my colleagues are going to be able to talk more than me, but basically huge potential in Brazil for restoration of degraded lands, huge potential for conservation as the COP is going to happen in the Amazon. So for us, looking forward to this year is a number of engagements and empowerment of this sense of urgency, but also identifying these opportunities that we need to showcase by the end of the year And think also about the COP30, not as just a stop moment or a show. It's about the next 10 years. So what is the legacy with all these initiatives that we are running that will be left? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. So Maria spoke from the perspective, I think, of the policy environment. Maria spoke from the perspective of the policy environment for COP30. I'm going to speak from the perspective of the investor environment, the investor conditions, and how investors are likely to find COP30 and find the investment context. And I'm saying, for the last couple of COPs that I've gone to, one of the most interesting things has been to see the rise of participation of financial institutions there and of investors looking for deals. So you have the blue zone on the one hand, and then you have the green zone on the other, and the green zone has become basically a deal-making festival. So a little bit about what I do. I want to just say something very interesting and strangely coincidental. Alyssa just told a story, for those of you in the room, about having built a large renewable platform and then exiting it and doing other cool things. So I spent the last 25 years in renewable private equity. I also built a renewable energy developer from scratch, became a multi-$100-million company, and interestingly, I also sold parts of it to the same buyer. So I think that's a weird and exotic coincidence. So after I did that, I sat down because my original training was in molecular biology and tropical ecology. I asked myself a hard question: what do I do next? I'd spent, a lifetime in climate finance and sustainable finance. And one of the things that really bothered me, really drove me nuts, was it was extremely difficult for folks that were in the climate investment space to access capital. And at that point in time, we didn't really have a nature-based solutions investment space. It was like 2019, 2020 when I was thinking about this. But I was really concerned about the lack of capital around nature. And I talked to my wife about what I would do next. And she said, look, try to figure out something to do that can, bring your finance experience and your nature focus together. And so we built a platform called Capital for Climate. And what Capital for Climate aims to do is help institutional capital understand how to invest successfully in nature-based solutions. So we organize an elite peer group of financial institutions on the one side, and on the other side, we map investable pipeline and nature-based solutions globally. Now, our largest center of activity is in Brazil. Why? Why is Brazil so important? Well, if you look around the world and you think about the total cost of the climate transition, it turns out that the lowest cost of the whole transition, which is more than the energy transition is going to cost us $150 billion. All nature-based solutions deployment between now and 2050 is $10 billion or less, with an average cost of $50 or less per ton. That means economically rational actors, so treasuries of nations, ultimately will see that nature-based solutions are the lowest cost deployment. Brazil has a huge head start. It has massive physical advantages. It has a high-functioning capital market, a really strong agribusiness entrepreneurial community, a strong entrepreneurial community, and a really conducive policy environment, as evidenced by things like the Ecological Transition Plan. So in that context, starting 3 years ago, we developed an investment collaborative comprised of a number of leading asset managers that are either based in Brazil or have activities in Brazil. That represents around $2.5 billion of AUM now focused on nature-based solutions. And our goal is to reach $5 billion focused on nature-based solutions, working together with the BRB Finance Coalition on a goal of getting $10 billion for 2030. We think that we're well on the way. And then within the country, what we've done over the last couple of years is built an in-country research and business development team that works with the startup community and with the platform community and the asset management community. And over the last 3 years, we've mapped more than $3 billion worth of investment opportunity. We helped catalyze more than $350 million of direct deals through the collaborative. We've mapped $1.5 billion of transactions over the last 36 months. And what our job is to basically accelerate that activity. And so what you're likely to see at COP30 is we'll be coming to the table with deal flow. So leading funds and vehicles, leading platform developers in restoration and agroforestry and the restoration of degraded pasturelands. And since many of those in the room I know came here for a tech angle, a number of really world-class tech platforms that help support the restoration economy. Everything from Courageous Lands to Tropico to Regreen and others. So I think you'll find COP30 a really attractive investment environment for putting large-scale capital to work in nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, Maria, Marina, and the organizers for having us. So I'll make 3 points to try to complement what has been said. So my first point is, so that's the first COP in the heart of the largest tropical forest in the world. And so here we have probably like the most prestigious scientists related to the Amazon. So I'll try not to say anything wrong. Professor Carlos Nobre, please correct me if I say something wrong, right? But that's the first COP in the heart of that forest. It's a huge forest. For those of you who have never been there, probably, who has been in the Amazon here? Raise your hands. Yeah, as expected. So very few people know, at least like the size of the forest. The Amazon forest is larger than Western Europe. So it's a huge forest, highly complex biologically, but also socially. There are 30 million people living there with the lowest social indexes in Brazil. So some of the regions are closer to Africa. They are closer to São Paulo when you look at education, sanitation, etc., etc. So, and science is very clear that if we don't protect the Amazon, there's no chance we're gonna be under 1.5. So there's a global mandate to protect the Amazon. So my point is, if you are going to the COP, my advice to you is to plan for another days to get to know the forest. And there are 2 reasons why. First, on a personal level, because it's so important for the world, it's important that everyone knows. And you only understand a little bit of the forest if you go there, if you experience it. It's size, it's trees, it's rivers, it smells, it's people. So my advice is like, take the opportunity to get to know and understand a little bit, and you're gonna get out much more equipped to talk about that elsewhere. So it's very important that people know that huge asset that the world has. The second reason for that, most of you are startuppers or like deep tech. And beyond all the nature-based solutions potential that the Amazon has, the Amazon is house of it's 15% of the global biodiversity. And it's sad that it has the solutions for many diseases or many solutions for many problems of the world. But the reality is that we don't know, because there aren't enough people looking at that at scale. So you don't have medtechs, biotechs. You have a growing number, but they're very, very small. So if you bring your capabilities there, like those of you who are in that sector, I'm sure like there is a huge potential economic opportunity. The second point is not only about the Amazon, about Brazil. Brazil is also unknown to the world. So when people think about climate change in Brazil, people think about deforestation, but the reality is that a lot of good things that Brazil has been doing related to climate technologies that are also unknown. So my second invitation is take the opportunity to get to know a little bit about Brazil. So I'll give you a few figures. For example, 90% of the energy grid is renewable in Brazil. That's European and American target for like 20, 30 years from now. So if you are in an energy intensive sector, you can always look at Brazil as a place to be. So if you want to develop a data center, for example, going forward, we have the lowest wind costs and the third lowest solar costs of the world. So again, unknown. I see faces like I didn't know. And then we can go on and on. We will talk about biofuels and so on. So lots of things that are unknown. The nature-based solutions that Tony said. So we need partnerships, we need technology from outside. And as Professor Hausman from MIT said a few sessions ago, the low-hanging fruits, and Tony mentioned that as well, they are mostly in developing countries. The abatement cost of developing countries is typically much lower than developed countries. And I'm not saying that doing business in Brazil is easy, but if we don't combine our energies, we won't be able to make it. The last point is to say that this will be the people COP. People don't know Brazil, but people know Brazilians. And we're famous for football, for samba, for music, for being happy people that welcome foreigners. So I'm not sure that the COP will be as organized as if this would have been here in Switzerland, but I'm sure it's gonna be a lot of fun. So please, we welcome you in Brazil. I want to see all of you in Brazil. Thank you.
So thank you, Sima. Thank you, Jason. I think we will be around so you can connect with us, and we are hoping that you come and we can explore a lot of partnerships and attract the investments. And I think collaborate, because only with deep collaboration we'll be able to scale the solutions that we need. So thank you, Sima, again for having us. Thank you, Jason.
That concludes our program today. We were exactly on time despite a few hiccups along the way. Really appreciate everybody being here, and the networking continues in the next room over. I think the Shots Help needs to clear this room out. So we are adjourning for the day.
Thank you so much.
So, you're talking about